and his sounds is just like a vibe in its purest form. It makes you want to move in a natural way and not in like a TikTok-y dance way. It's always a groove, and you always kind of just want to, kind of wind your hips a little bit.
Yeah, the whole album has that kind of sway to it.
Yeah, and then moving on to Anybody. I don't know if you noticed, but he repeatedly mentions my name in the song. Anybody we know want to soji. That means like anybody that doesn't want to dance they need to get knocked on their head.
Let me put you on game.
Yeah, bro. All right, so this week we're gonna be reviewing African Giant by Damini Ebunoluwa Ugulu, also known as Burna Boy. He's a Nigerian artist known for being at the top of the afrobeats, Afrofusion music movement that's really taking its foothold in the world right now, and is being dominated by guys like Wizkid, Davido, Thames, and many others. African Giant is his fourth studio album that came out in 2019 by way of Atlantic Records and Warner Media Group, and it really catapulted Burna Boy into the limelight and had him kind of put his foothold in the music industry as a whole. Some people might have heard of him, but this album really allowed him to just make a statement that he is here. He's won a few different international Artist of the Year awards, and he's really on a lot of people's charts as being one of the best artists, in my opinion, of our generation, and just really making high quality, very groovy music. He has songs and features with people like Beyonce, features on this album, as well as Damian Marley, Georgia Smith, and several others. And this album really saw him come into his own from a song creation perspective. He was so dynamic on this project. It was really challenging for me to review this album because and it's not because it has elements of different languages, dynamic intersecting percussion, rhythmic production, or, trying to break apart and dissect his meaning behind his lyrics. But I kept getting so swept up in these songs that they'd be over by the time I remembered I actually had to review it. That's how hard it was for me. A song would be like 3 minutes, 30 seconds in, and I would just be done. And I'm like, oh yeah, I actually got to think about what's going on here. So yeah, that was kind of my overall on the album. How about you?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's a really good album. I don't know if I have quite the connection with it that you have, because I'm not tapped into the Afrobeats scene like that. So it took some getting used to for me in terms of the sound, but I really do enjoy it. But I don't know if I connect with it on the level that you connect with it on. So that's where I sit with it. That's why I want you to take the lead, because I don't want to dim your shine or dim the moment, because I know how significant this dude is to you and to like a lot of different people. So I will say, what I liked about it, but you definitely gonna have to take the reins on this one, because I think you do it more justice than I do it because of the significance of it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Well, yeah, let's kind of get into the track by track breakdown. The first stretch of the album, we got songs like African Giant, Anybody, and Waiting Man Go Do. African Giant really opened with a atmospheric bass beat that leaned on light and heavy synths, a bit of string strummings for some spice. And I thought it was a really excellent track that had him establish himself. Like, he's not shying away from the idea that he feels like he is an African giant. The actual title of the album came from a slight that he felt being in such really small print on the cover of the Coachella flyer that was being passed out when he performed there prior to this album's release. And he was like, you know what? People are going to know who I am because and this is me, like, kind of, rebelling against that and establishing himself. And his sounds is just like a vibe in its purest form. It makes you want to move in a natural way and not in like a TikTok-y dance way. It's always a groove, and you always kind of just want to, kind of wind your hips a little bit.
Yeah, the whole album has that kind of sway to it.
Yeah, and then moving on to Anybody. I don't know if you noticed, but he repeatedly mentions my name in the song. Anybody we know want to soji. That means like anybody that doesn't want to dance they need to get knocked on their head. And you can feel the rhythmic synths, the maracas, the percussion elements that set the stage, that are accentuated by the horns, the trumpets. I know you love them. And And you can clearly hear his influence from guys like Fela Kuti, and he just runs with it. I love his energy and the message behind the song as well. And then going into Witin Mangodu, it's like a faint cowbell, somber acoustic guitar, especially in the beginning, and the transition that captures the essence of his voice, which is really powerful. I think he has one of the best voices and unique voices in music right now, and it's very distinguished. And it's a very reflective song that kind of describes the hardships of living in the Nigerian economy and what people resort to in those circumstances. And then moving on to Dangote, which is a very dramatic synth and drum leads that are behind some very subtle bass guitar. The elements of trumpet and sax ran around the scope of the sounds that captures this sound and creates just a really special sound overall. And he just kind of describes the hustle of himself in relation to guys like Aliko Dangote, who's the richest man in Africa. But yeah, what did you feel about this opening stretch of the album?
Yeah, I think it's one of the stronger stretches on the album for me. I like the hooks and the rhythm on African Giant. I think it's a really good intro. It's title tracks for intros are always a good idea, but they also do a good job of setting the tone for what you're getting into. And I thought it did that. Anybody, I think, is one of the best the best songs that came out that year. To be honest, it's absolutely infectious. The horns really work. It's one of the best party songs. It really shows his songwriting talent. I really enjoy it. It's an earworm for sure. What Timango do, I like the bass in his voice on that one. It almost sounds like I like the almost grunting on the chorus. The percussion on that, like a lot of the percussion on the album is really infectious. And I like you said, the subject matter of taking it from a perspective of someone that's doing wrong, but showing you why they do what they do. Dangote, I think it's interesting when you think about what the previous song is about, and then also talking about on the very next track the opposite of that, like going from rags to riches essentially in terms of subject matter. So I thought that was interesting, talking about the name of the track, the guy that the track is named after, excuse me. Going into Gumbody with Georgia Smith, I thought that one was cool. I like the chemistry between him and Georgia. I'm not the biggest Georgia Smith fan because I think she can be a little too understated sometimes for me, but I enjoyed the track overall. Killing Them with Zlatan, I like that one a lot. I thought it was a really nice change of pace. I like how urgent the drumming is on that one. It's a real departure from the sound of the early part of the album. Omo, a nice groove, really good party track. Secret with Jeremiah and Serrani, a very catchy Dirty Mac track for sure. It's a very reprehensible song, but still very catchy. I've heard Serrani, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I've heard him on a couple Soca tracks. I like him a lot. And then going into Collateral Damage as well, I like the guitar on that one, the almost hum-like chorus. It's a good take on corruption that exists within Africa and how he kind of takes people to task for not fighting hard enough against it. So I thought that was a really good track. And I like how he peppers in social commentary amongst the party tracks on the album. So he has a really good balance between having fun, but also a sense of social responsibility to what's going on in his country and on his continent.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you were able to kind of pick up on that, because a lot of what you feel when you listen to Afro beats is groovy. You want to dance, you want to have fun, but the amount of social commentary that he's able to infuse into that has always been remarkable to me, because normally people are I've heard people criticize guys like Kendrick Lamar because it's like, yeah, he's a great rapper and everything, but he makes me want to think too much and I just want to dance. And this kind of
terrible take anything in life. It's just like, I don't want to that's continue.
But yeah, no, you got people that just really, they, it's like, yeah, To Pimp a Butterfly is great, but I don't want to hear a dissertation every time I bump an album. And so what amazes me about Burna is his ability to infuse social commentary in the midst of just being extra groovy. And Gumbody, like you said, was great, but then Killing Them and the urgency, like you said, as well as the cowbells and the percussion elements, and then Zlatan rapping in, in pidgin was a lot of fun to me, and just really full of energy. Moving into Omaha, to me, this song was a prime example of Afrofusion, which is the genre that Burna Boy says that he kind of embodies. That is a mixture of, the Afro beat that Fela Kuti created and pioneered, but then also gets its influences from dance hall, from reggae, from juju music. And I love the combination of the Caribbean reggae drums and Burna Boy's style of speaking that blends the native Afro beats persona into the music as a whole. The song is really playful, very vibey, and overall easy to listen to. But then moving on into Secret, very morally reprehensible song that I didn't really pick up on, and then I'm like, oh, he's just trying to keep his mistress like, yo, stay in your place. And it's like, that was really tongue in cheek to me. But yeah, Jeremiah, I thought was actually a really good fit for this song, funny enough. And I thought he was going to be awkward, but it blended together well somehow. Collateral Damage, I love the guitar in that, and just the like you said, the issues with the corruption. And then moving on to another story, this song, as well as the skit that kind of preceded it, in terms of just talking about Nigeria's creation, was really fascinating to me. And I just love how Burna was able to at least discuss the history of Nigeria and West Africa as a whole, and the colonial British influence that preceded its creation, and just the remnants of that has allowed corruption to exist in as much as it has existed, and for that to have the effect that it just has had consistently on the people of Africa. It's really hard to be the average Nigerian in the slums, and it's tough. But moving on to a song like Pull Up, he just kind of brings you back into the party vibe. And Pull Up, man, I enjoyed his singing and the melodies that created on the song. Really smooth,
really good chorus.
Yeah, he was in pocket with his capabilities, wasn't doing too much or too little, just riding really well. And the gentle electric guitar chords with the shekere, which is like a bead-based percussion instrument, and the Afrobeats percussion, very swaggy. And at the end of the song, he says, "Burna Makbami," nah, which means "Burna, don't kill me," because the songs are so good, you don't want it to hurt you. And then, this stretch of the album for some people might be a little funky between Destiny and Different, where Destiny is like a departure from the sound, and this gets into more like electro hip hop, I feel. And at first it kind of turned me off, but then I realized that it wasn't the kind of sound that I'm used to. And then once I was able to kind of take a step back, I'm like, oh, this is like it's more along the line of house music. And when I saw it in that context, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see why this song is fun. It doesn't fit overall in the album, but I could see what he was going for. But then moving on to Different, and his wordplay, and him talking smack with Damian Marley, talking about various issues in the world, from negative social media impacts, awareness of violence, politics, urban remedies, and understanding one's group history. I thought it was really dope. Anytime you get Damian Marley on the track, you better come correct, and he really came. He came hard. Man, but he
you realize what you did his thing, like midline.
Yeah. he was doing his thing with Junior Gang.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so what do you think about this stretch?
I liked it. I like Another Story. I like him delving into Nigeria's history of colonization. Like we said, I like the chorus on Pull Up. The guitar kind of reminded me a little bit of You Make Me Wanna by Usher for some reason. It's just kind of like,
yeah, no, it does. Yeah. You're right.
I think Destiny was a nice change of pace for me. I like the chorus. It's a very like uplifting song about, kind of going for what you want, not letting anyone get in the way of your dreams. Different was cool. I like that a lot. I'm a big fan of Damian Marley. I enjoyed a lot of his work. I think he has a very unique style. So I really appreciate him being on the song. It has more of a reggae feel than a lot of the album, but I still enjoy it. On the Low, I know I just said that like a guy from Minnesota. On the Low is one of my favorites for sure too. I really love that one. I know it's one of the big. It's like the second biggest hit on the album probably. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really enjoyable song. And then it kind of gets into a weird part of the album that I don't like as much. I'm not a fan of Show and Tell with Future. It kind of feels like the most Americanized song on the album. It doesn't really feel like it fits his style, and it feels really unnecessary. YG doesn't need to be here. I like YG, but he doesn't need to be on the album in this context. The
that
two
line,
styles don't really meet.
that line about you know, and his inclusion of talking about a cloth that seems to clean other people's bums seems pretty out of touch. Especially since the fact that Burna is, you know, clearly Nigerian. He's not Caribbean. So I'm like, bro, why are you referencing this? He must not have really looked into who he was doing the song with or something.
Yeah, he just got that check and wrote the verse. But yeah, Spiritual was a nice closer for me. I thought it kind of brought it back to the vibe that I was enjoying on the rest of the album, even though that, you know, two track stretch was a little bit of a misstep for me. But overall, really enjoyable album, an album that I liked. I think it's gonna take me listening to more Afro beats to really get into the significance of it, because I think Afro beats as a genre is more, and soca as well, even though it's, you know, my home my home country's music. I think it's more single based for me than me actually sitting down and listening to albums worth of this style of music. So it's gonna take some getting used to for me. But overall, I enjoyed it. What do you think about the album and this last stretch?
Yeah, no, this last stretch for me was just really impactful. Burna, with the electric guitar and electric organ, it created a really eerie atmosphere in the beginning of the song that kind of catapults to when the song begins. His voice, coupled with like his creative lyrics, just creates such a great rhythmic experience. When the big dude and suck buddy, like that was just hit my soul, man. You know, the bedu is it's like a loud drum, like a very deep bass drum. So like that's kind of what he was talking about. And then on the low, you know, making Angelinas around the world feel special. And you know, unlike Felicia's, you know, sorry Felicia, this is really one of my favorite songs on the album, and I can listen to this album anytime, any place, anywhere on repeat. It's just that great. Earworm, like you said, with anybody. And yeah, that stretch of show and tell in this side, I was just like, bro, I guess maybe you're trying to like, you know, cross over into the rap genre to get some of those fans, but it just fell flat on its face. I like the elements of show and tell actually, between the beat and Burna's voice and Future. I thought individually the parts were well, but overall it just didn't mesh well together. This side I kind of wish didn't happen, even though the beat was actually kind of nice. And yeah, Spiritual, it was relatively straightforward with humming background bass, consistent one note electric organ, and intersecting percussion that just was, since the best song in that project, but just exemplary of the style overall. And just, you know, me thinking about the impact of this project, just with the number of hits that are on it, really on a 19 track album, with the Afrofusion genre in mind, this album really stood out a lot to me. I kind of question whether or not it's actually a classic album. I think it's still a little bit early to tell, but I think it's going to be in that conversation going forward, to see how at the, you know, the turn of the decade, Afrobeats really started to take over the charts. You know, again, between guys like Davido, Wizkid, and others, they're just really dominating the space and creating a lot of hit songs that everybody listens to. Everybody listens to Fall. You know, everybody's repeating those lyrics. You know, Money Fall. You know, but yeah, I think over time you're gonna be able to look back on this album and be like, wow, yeah, Burna Boy really had a great project in the middle of all these great projects. But yeah, so let's get into favorite tracks.
How many you want, bro?
It's 19 tracks, so I think 4 is very reasonable.
That's fair. I'll go on the low. Anybody, African Giant, and let me get Secret.
Yeah, you know, like, and that's what's beautiful about this album. There's almost something for everybody. You know, if you like dance hall, if you like reggae, if you like Afrobeat, you know, even a little bit of hip hop, you know, feeling and influence, you're gonna dig this album a lot. And so for me, anytime you put my name in a song, I gotta like it. And then coupled with the fact that it's just a great song. Wetin Mangudu, I love that song. I love what he talks about, and just the reality of it. It really hit home. Then moving on, this is where it gets tough, but you know, On the Low, great album, great track. I mean, and finally, Bona, like fire. That's what Bona means. It's like hot, you know what I mean? And that's what this song is for me. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so you know, kind of starting with the last album that we did, this album's 2 years old, and it's in that kind of range where you can start considering whether or not it was a classic project. But yeah, what are your overall thoughts? What would you rate this album, and do you think it's a classic project?
I think I would say highly recommend. If I was looking to someone to get into an Afrobeats album and give you an idea of what the genre is, I think this is likely one of the better ones. I don't know. I don't know if I'm equipped to say if it's a classic or not. I'm gonna go ahead and say yes based on the criteria because of the genre. We're not debating if this is like an American classic or if it's a rap classic, within that context. But for a genre that is relatively new in terms of its popularity, in terms of its spreading around the world, I think that this has to be one of the most essential albums for that to happen. I don't think that it gets the level of popularity without guys like Burna Boy. I think he's one of the vanguards in terms of the genre itself. And with this being, I think most people will consider this to be his best and most popular album. I think that has to be the case. I think it has to be a classic within its genre. But I don't know. I feel like I feel like I'm like a Midwestern white guy talking about rap music to Black people. Like I just feel out of my depth. But for me, if I had to give my opinion on it, I would say that it was a classic.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been on repeat. It enhances this experience of the project if you're an avid music fan of dancehall, reggae, rap, and jazz. I think you'd be better able to appreciate everything that he does. And for the average, rap listener, it might kind of go over your head. I know, funny enough, when I first heard the project, it kind of went over my head because I wasn't as dug into Afro beats and what that sound was and what the style was overall when this album released. But, upon further listening, I really appreciate everything that he was able to do. I think this album is a must listen in terms of its impact on me and just how much enjoyment I'm able to get from several stretches of the project, and how even after all these years that it's come out, there's still some stretches where I'm just uncovering some stuff and I'm realizing, wow, like the first 16 tracks are hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
In my eyes. And I think it is a classic project as well. I think it is one of those projects that you look at from a commercial standpoint, really putting him on the map, and really establishing him as an international act, between the Grammys and the awards, critically, personally, and then let's not even get into Nigeria. Like that's where, Burna is a super mega star, and I love it. I love the impact, and yeah, must listen for me.
Fair enough. Yeah. I just would have felt disingenuous just giving it a must listen because I feel like it's been like a 2-week crash course on Afrobeats just listening to this album for me. So, I'm sure it'll grow over time. Definitely send all the Afrobeat songs and albums my way so I can get better accustomed to it because I'm very Americanized. so it's all rap and pop and R&B over here. So and some rock music. So I definitely got to get into my roots more. But I appreciate you bringing this album to the table and having us review it because it definitely forced me to stretch outside of my comfort zone. But it was an enjoyable listen. I really enjoyed it.